Dave, tell us about your business and what's limiting its growth right now.
Generation Family Properties, which is our land flipping business. So similar to what you and Erica have, we have a land flipping business. I think is hurting us right this moment is we're in a moment of transition where we've been doing a lot of smaller properties and medium-sized properties, and it works to a degree, but we kind of hit a ceiling on what we felt we wanted to be able to do as a business. And so we're trying to essentially get rid of a lot of the old inventory and old stuff. So selling a lot of our existing stuff and then moving on to bigger and better projects. And that's what we're doing right now, doing a lot of subdivides and some messy title stuff. And so we're pretty spread thin right this second, but I think we're moving, got some good strategies, but curious to talk it out with you and see what else might come out of this meeting today.
Yeah, we'll get into the subdivides, messy title stuff. But just to add context for the listeners, what is the goal you're trying to achieve revenue-wise?
A few years ago, we had about $2 million revenue. 2024, we had $3.1 million revenue. 2025, we had like $3.3 million revenue or so. And so really where we want to hit, which may not happen this year, but we want to set up for 2027 being like a $6 million revenue year.
Okay, so you're trying to 2x revenue, which is, a reasonable goal. So tell me why you didn't think of or you didn't pursue just doing more volume, right? So you said you're doing small and medium. Clearly that business model works. So why not just 2x that?
2 years ago, maybe even last year, we had a lot of owner financing. So we had about 500 notes and had a bunch of properties. And we ran into a number of different things and challenges that convinced me that to increase that business was going to require an awful lot of staff and would be a lot of headaches to continue to do it. Because if you want to continue to scale something, right, you have to ask, okay, what's the capital? What's the labor? What's the cost of doing business that way? And if you look at something like owner financing, let's say historically you buy a property for $2,000 and we're trying to sell it for $4,000 or $5,000 cash, or we'll sell it at owner financing, we'll get $500 down and $150 a month or something like that. The cash flow that generates, right? So if we were having about at the time $1.2 million in recurring revenue, and then as we hit about the $3 million mark, we had about $1.8 million in cash, somewhere around those. And so on an incremental basis to keep doing that, like you start crunching the numbers to double that, we start having this issue of notes are falling off, right? Because we've had them amortized over a certain time period, so they're starting to pay off. Well, you have to replace those notes and you have to get new ones. And at $500 down, you're talking about hundreds of properties additional on top of what we already had. And our systems were really breaking down in terms of keeping track of all the property tax payments, keeping track of the bookkeeping, because every time someone defaults on a property, which is very common, those owner financing, now you have to go and you record a bunch of stuff bookkeeping wise. You have to remember to enter it into your system and have things go the right way. And so it's just a lot of labor, which when you look at, hey, if you're selling something for $2,000, buying something for $2,000, you're selling it for $4,000, it sounds like a nice ROI, but when you start adding up all those additional costs, that subtracts an awful lot from that margin. So the margin ain't 100% that it appears to be. It might be 50% or 40%. And we had so many properties, and then we have property taxes to pay, which on one property, it's not a big deal if you're having to pay $50 or $100. But when you have 100 of them that are sitting in inventory, those costs add up over time. So there's a drag to some of those kinds of things. In addition, when you're doing a lot of self-closing work, guess what? Sometimes you make mistakes. Not that title companies can't make mistakes, but we found errors that didn't get caught along the process. So when you start moving at speed and volume, volume, doing quantity just requires so much more scale. And financially, I came to the conclusion I would rather do less deals and make more money on each deal in order to be more concentrated, more focused on doing what we're doing. That's a very long answer to your question, but I hope
No. That's perfect. That's the perfect amount of detail. So question on so you clearly, I mean, it is a common problem. We obviously we see it on our side as well. So why not move instead of going from 2 to 5, buying on 2, selling on 5? Why not go to buy at 10, sell at 20? Because then you can do like 5 of those instead of doing one of small one.
We already did that for sure. And so
Okay.
we had already moved from the small stuff to more medium-sized stuff. We still had some small stuff that came in because we own literally hundreds of tax liens that
Right.
we're foreclosing on over time. So we still have small stuff coming in because of things we've done in the past. And by the way, some of those rules changed around doing some of that kind of stuff. And now with FinCEN and some of these other things, there's a lot of questions around the small thing. Anyhow, we started doing more of those. And that's how we basically got to 3 million plus revenue, was adding in more medium-sized things that were more expensive. And now we start closing through title, which perhaps helps with some of those issues. We found recently, though, that that's not always the case. And what we found when you're doing something at scale, that we were at the point of sending out 40 to 50,000 mailers a month, which is a lot of overhead. Nowadays, you're probably paying 60 cents per piece of mail. You're looking at a minimum of $24,000 in a marketing budget, right? We've done PPC, we've done texting, we've done cold calling. PPC and mail are our two favorite strategies out of the two. And so it was costing a lot of money. And then we found that since 2023, that the amount of mail it takes to get a deal has gone higher and higher and higher to get those. The time that all you and I and Erica have all been in the business, the cost per acquisition has astronomically continued to increase as perhaps more people are in the business or whatever. And so, if I was able to buy something and it only took me 1,000 mailers or 2,000 mailers to get that margin, I think we would probably be content doing it. But it's taking so many more mailers and marketing acquisition costs to do it. Then in order to hit the number of acquisitions that we want, now we're having to send out to that many more regions. So we can't be geographically specialized in one county, one state. And so we're spread out over all these different states, which if we had a smaller business, being in one or two states would be fine. But with what we're trying to get to, which is 6 million, 9 million, $10 million revenue business, you hit that constraint on number one, the capital to do it. And that's why we've shifted to on markets, which now we have 2 under contract, one that actually we bought, another one that we did, which cost us time, my staff time, but it sure as heck didn't cost me $24,000, $30,000 worth of staff time to make those acquisitions. That might have been $3,000 or $4,000 a month in comparison. So I've drastically lowered my overhead, and we're able to get focused on buying, let's say, anywhere from 4 to 10 properties in one go. So we're able to be more concentrated, really vet the realtors well, rather than having to have 100 different realtors and 100 different properties and 100 different counties spread across the country. So that's kind of the reasons why we've continued to move up, as many people do. And so, for example, now before, hey, if you're looking to get money for a medium-sized property or a small one, no bank would do anything outside. If you get a credit line from American Express or Wells Fargo or whatever, you can get debt that way. But now in these bigger projects, rather than paying a hard money lender 1.5% per month, 18% per year, or doing a deal funding thing where we find a partner that will take 50-50 or 60-40 or even 70-30, we're able to get that cost of capital with a bank down to like 8%. So our cost of capital is lower, our marketing cost is virtually nothing, but it does take some staff time to do that.
Well, lot to pick from, but I would say this on the CAC to LTV side. You did mention that cost to acquire is going up, and that's kind of like pretty much everywhere, right? The cost always goes up. Like sending mail, it's never going to go down. PPC is never going to go down. It's only going to go up. So one way we're tackling it in our business is we kind of like at this point have accepted that CAC will keep going up. So we shifted our focus on LTV, lifetime value, right? So this is like one of the concept I talk about in my book as well, where there are two ways to make money, right? One is to you spend more money on marketing, you spend more money on ads, right? And then you acquire more customers. So that's how one way a business makes more money. But the second way to make more money, this is more like in a traditional business, is you make your existing customer more valuable, right? So the way we're trying to tackle it is because we're still in the small and medium flip game. So we're now starting to build relationships with our customers. Like we're calling them every month, checking in, very hands on, like Zoom calls. No, not even like emails. We're like doing Zoom calls with them. We're calling them on their birthdays, wishing them happy birthday, giving them like a special discount, special offer. And so we've been doing this for like over a year now. And what we have started to see is, actually, one more thing. We're doing like win money back campaigns, which is essentially we give them some kind of an offer and incentivize them to pay their loan faster. So they become a landowner faster, which means it creates an opportunity for us to sell them another piece of land. So we're doing a lot of plays on the LTV side because we know the CAC just going to keep on going up. So if we can keep on pushing the LTV, lifetime value per customer, up as well, then we can justify spending more on the marketing side. So that's how we're trying to solve that problem. I know there's like better ways of solving it, which what you're doing is just move to higher dollar value properties. The reason we have been hesitant is, and you can correct me if it's wrong, my thought process is that it does increase the risk, and it doesn't help me sleep at night. Because I'm like, all right, I have this 400K loan from a bank. I'm paying 8% on it, and those monthly payments start next month. And I'm like, what if it doesn't sell in a year? It might take 3 years. So how are you thinking about the increased risk?
Yeah, well, I think the nice thing about coming for where we have is we have a lot of owner finance notes that are still paying us monthly, and every month we still pick up some more. It may not
Mm,
fully replace what we've had, but as you look to sell medium-sized properties or doing these large subdivides, owner financing still is part of the game.
mm,
And so now we're having less notes, but they're a higher dollar per note.
mm,
And so we have in our business, and I know you guys have in your business, a lot of recurring revenue.
right.
And so the way I'm looking at it as a business owner is, what are my monthly obligations? What do I have coming into the business? And then mixing debt with equity. So for example, this deal that we have under contract is a 270 acre property in Oklahoma. And in this case, we can treat it like a major subdivide, even though we actually don't have to go through the process of that.
Mm,
It's like a minor split in terms of your paperwork, which is great. So we don't have to have the time issue. And so in this case, we're buying for 675, and we think we can sell all of the lots at a very conservative basis for 1.3 mil. And so I would be looking in this case to take on bank financing, but then I bring in an equity partner that's going to put up the equity side. And so we are going to be splitting the profits on a 50-50 basis. And so when I look at what does it take for us to get rid of that bank loan, we could end up selling, probably out of what's going to be 20 properties, we end up selling 4 of them, 5 of them, and the bank loan can go away.
mm. Wait, clarifying question. So you have a 50% equity partner. So the equity partner is not putting in all the capital?
Correct. Yeah, so we're getting bank financing on part of it, which is our contribution, if you will.
Huh.
We're putting in the bank with bank money. So we're not
Right, right,
actually
right.
putting in much of we're paying for some of the due diligence costs. So it might be, and the survey and stuff like that. So it might be 10 to 15K out of pocket. in order
Right.
for us to basically, let's just say, make $300,000 on it.
So 10K out of pocket on due diligence, and what is the dollar amount you got from the bank?
So we're going through those approvals right now, but what we're understood is it should be about 75% will be debt financed, 25% equity. And so if
Okay.
you look at the note servicing on that on a monthly basis, assuming we don't sell a single property, right? How can I sleep at night knowing what I'm going to have to service? It's probably going to be like an 8% interest rate.
Hmm.
So that's about $3,000 to $4,000 a month, right? So how long can I float that? Well, in our case, we have about $80,000 a month currently today of recurring income.
Right.
And then we have, obviously, we have employees, we have partners, we have other debt. So we have about $22,000 of monthly debt service right now. So that $4,000 amount isn't that high relative to all of our income, recurring income that we have coming in. Now, that being said, that recurring income, we have a bad economy, a bunch of people default, that could get cut in half in a minute.
Right. Yeah.
So I look at it as, okay, if that gets cut in half, what does the business look like? Well, I could fire people, right? Maybe I take some money I have in other places, pay off some of the debt. What's manageable. And so I feel that there is a point that where I would lose sleep at night. But the fact that, hey, we have property selling every month, we have the owner financing, we're a diversified business. It's gotten us to this point, and now that stuff that we did in the past can help support our transition to the future.
Hmm. How much did the equity partner put in?
They would be putting in about, what would that be, 250K, something like that.
Okay. All right. So
200K.
250K the equity partner is putting in, rest is coming from the bank,
Mm-hmm.
right? Okay. All right. It is an interesting mix. Any reason why you just didn't go 100% bank financing?
They won't let you. You have to have skin in the game.
You tried.
The banks want to protect themselves, right? So if I could go 100% bank financing at a low interest rate, hell yeah, I would. But that's not the way it works.
That's what I was like thinking. Why do you need equity partner if you already have it? Okay, so that makes sense.
Which in an ideal world, as time goes on, like right now, we have some other loans, like we have some credit lines we're going to be paying off in July. So I know some of the cash flow is going to be freeing up for us soon, anyhow. But my goal would be eventually that we do the equity side of it from our own cash flow and not have a partner in there. And that way we get 100% of the profits. But for right now, I'm bringing in other people that have that experience, right? So I'm partnering with someone, not just for the capital, but hey, put an eye on this. What am I missing? What should we be asking? People that have done subdivides 10, 15, 20, 30 times, that they're going to know stuff that we don't know, to have that mentorship in the process. So not only do we make money, but we get a mentor, and then we get them to put up the money, right? So it's a win-win-win proposition. But then as we grow and learn and grow and we get to hitting some of these things, then we put up the money ourselves. And then we don't need that equity partner. But right now, as we are learning and growing, is it still land flipping? Yes. But it's a different niche that there's just stuff that we don't know that we want to avoid.
What are the learnings that we can share with our audiences?
So like in this particular case, for this particular property, we're in the due diligence phase. We have it under contract.
Right.
We haven't bought it yet. So we found out that there's pipelines going through this property. And we talked to some other land investors that have dealt with this. Okay, what do we need to know? And so they gave us some talking points and different people we could call. We talked to our realtor, who's a land-based specialist. Like, okay, we have setbacks, but apparently there's some hidden shadow rules, that we weren't aware of. Or like we were talking with the realtor earlier today. There's electricity on the southern side, the eastern side, and the northern side of this property that has three-sided road frontage. But he thinks that the northern side is electricity for pipeline, oil-related stuff, and not for residential.
Ooh.
Like I would have seen the electricity being like, oh gosh, hey, there's electrical lines, we'll be good. But he's saying, no, that's probably not the case. that those
Mm,
electrical lines would not support a home. So those are the kind of things in due diligence
mm.
that, as you're talking with other people and experts, that they help you to uncover.
Yeah, they become very, very important because like one, if you skip one thing, you could lose so much money. I mean, you're aware, right? Pipelines you can see on Land ID. I know there's a layer on there. I don't know if you know this.
We find Land ID is great, but it ain't perfect.
Right,
As a
right,
matter of
right.
fact,
Yeah.
one of the mistakes we made in this last year, we bought a property in Maine. It was a buy for 100, sell for 200,000. We were going to minor split it, and it took months to go through the title work and acquire this property. So we'll go and acquire it. Okay, we're excited. Let's go and sell this thing. And
Mm.
we ended up hearing from a nearby neighbor saying, "Wait, wait, wait! You don't own the northern part of that property." We're like, huh? What are you
What?
talking about? Map right, land
Yeah,
ID
yeah,
shows us that the whole thing's here. We didn't get
yeah.
a survey done on it. As a matter of
Uh,
fact, we had ordered the survey, but the survey took 8 months to
oh
complete.
wow. Yeah.
And so turns out that he's right. The surveyor confirmed it. And unfortunately, we bought a property for 100,000. Well, it's actually 85,000, but whatever. We bought a property for that amount, and we're only gonna be able to sell it for like 100,000,
Ooh.
105,000, something like that.
Yeah.
So those are the kind of mistakes that I want to avoid. Which, when you're moving so quick and you're doing
Yeah.
so many different areas, you be able to concentrate. That I'm sure there'll be new
Yeah.
mistakes that we make as
Yeah. Yeah.
as it happens, but
Mm.
the we should be able to catch something
Yeah.
like that in a process like
Have you
these.
have you noticed as you do these larger deals, the cash conversion cycle becomes longer and longer?
It depends on where you go. So, for example, we were looking at a deal in Saline County, Arkansas, and that particular subdivide, when we looked at other people that have done it, the cash conversion cycle was probably going to be 3 to 4 years to sell
Mm.
those lots. Even though the sell through rate looked good, when you looked at how long other subdividers held stuff on the market, the absorption rate wasn't great. Whereas we were just looking at a property in Minnesota, as a matter of fact, a couple days ago, and we put an offer in on it. We're waiting to hear back from that. Should be in the next hour as to whether that offer got accepted or not. You could see subdividers, and they've sold through almost all of their inventory within a year. So
Mm.
picking the right area becomes extremely important with subdividing, is what
Right.
we're finding out as we look at more and more deals and we get more and more experience doing it. And of course, that determines what you offer, right? Like that one in Arkansas, I would buy, but it's got to be at a much lower percentage than like this one in Oklahoma. That there's a lot more sales activity and more interest in that area, because that
Right.
absorption rate helps to determine the cash conversion cycle you were just talking about.
Right. So, assuming you say you buy a piece of land, say 270 acres, you're going to split it into 20 pieces. When you look at the sell through rate and historical sell through rate, like say you're looking at last 12 months, right? But the fact that these are like 20 parcels and it's going to take like couple of years to sell
Yes.
them,
Yes.
it doesn't the STR sell through rate kind of like throw you off because it's just like a limited time period, but your sell on the sell side it might take 2 years, and it also needs to factor in like the ups and downs of the economy. Doesn't it become more tricky?
It's just as tricky, frankly, as any normal property, right? I mean, we've looked at properties that had great sell-through rates, and they've stuck on the market for a long time just because something changed. Or maybe the property wasn't as good as we thought it would be. So there's many things, and you just want to be conservative to the point.
Hmm.
You want to get deals, right? And so you have to balance this idea as a business with, I need to get deals, but I want to be able to make good enough money that it makes sense. And
Right.
so ultimately, the question is, am I buying this low enough that I have a margin of safety? Just in the same way we would ask about any property. The
Right.
principle's the same.
Yeah.
And so you're looking at things just a little bit differently. Like if you're looking at a subdivide and there's only been 3 properties sold in the last year and you're trying to subdivide 20 lots into it, well, that's probably not a great absorption rate, right?
Yeah.
Where it's going to take a long time potentially for that to happen. Whereas if you look at an area that has 15 properties that sold and you're going to be releasing 15 into it, well, there's really good reason to think that that could all be done in 2 years. But you're right. It's you run the risk, like anywhere else, that your assumptions are wrong.
Right.
That
Yeah.
maybe this particular area where the property is at is harder to get to. And you didn't know that relative to these other properties. Or maybe you didn't know that the owner finance price is 8,000 per acre, but the actual cash price of where people sell it at is 5,000 an acre. And you
Yeah.
can't see that on Zillow. The
Right.
only way you know that is by your own experience and by talking to people doing deals in the area, having a great realtor and partners to help you with those decisions. But at the end of the day, just like anything else, it's a risk, and you just have
Yeah.
to ask yourself: is the juice worth the squeeze? That I'm willing to take this risk? And to our earlier conversation of this is what what do I have in resources in case this goes wrong?
Yeah. You mentioned you moved to on-market deals because your marketing spend was so high. Any reasons I know you have done tax auctions in the past. Any reason not to go back to tax auctions and try to pick properties there as well? Because the marketing cost is essentially zero, right?
Yeah, absolutely. No, I love that stuff. It's just I went to my first auction in 2019, and similar with mail and everything else, the cost per acquisition we were talking about, my experience has been that buying properties at an auction has gotten more and more expensive
Mm.
with time. And there's certain cases where, like, we bought a property 3-4 months ago at auction where we got a steal of a deal on it. Buy for 3,000, and it looks like we should be able to sell it for 25 to 30,000, right?
Mm.
But those don't come across all the time. You
Right.
don't know how many properties you're going to pick up at an auction. You hope you
Yeah.
pick up some. You might get skunked and get nothing, just like a mailer or any other source. Or you might be able to pick up 5 or 10. But again, there is a limited supply on what you could buy at these things. And the more expensive properties are much more competitive, is my general thing that I've seen. Something
Yeah.
that's worth $40,000 will typically, go for 30,000 or 35,000 or even over market. I've seen that many,
Yeah.
many times at auction, going for 50,000 or 60,000. Where it's like, who are these people and why are they bidding so
Yeah.
much on this property? What do they know that I don't
Yeah.
know? Or maybe their neighbors or whatever the
Yeah.
case. So I love the idea of auctions. I think auctions in a crap economy are a wonderful way to load up and get a whole bunch of stuff real cheap. But generally, most of the stuff you get at, like, Mojave County tax deed auction, I did in 2021. I bought 350 properties in one auction. 350. But most of them were buy for 500, sell for 3,000 or 4,000, buy for 500, sell for 2,000. And I ran into rules, just like with subdivides or other things, that I didn't know fully about going into that. Where state of Arizona, for example, has a rule that if you buy or sell more than 5 in the unit of a subdivision, you have to file a property report. Find out property report takes you about a year or two and costs you about 10 grand to do.
Mm.
And so there's rules like that that you may not be aware of, that even buying stuff cheap may not be
Yeah.
what you want.
Yeah.
And so there's pros and cons with all of it, is my point.
Yeah.
Can you scale a smaller business on auctions? Absolutely. But if you start getting to the point of having 2 million, 3 million on revenue just from that source, is not going to do it. I don't think, unless you happen to run into a really bad economic time and you're able to load up on stuff because nobody has cash.
Yeah. As you have moved on to on-market deals, how is it different? Like, how is the due diligence changed? Because now you could, like, literally spend like few days researching an on-market property, and then you make, say, 70 cents on the dollar offer and it gets rejected, which is like because you're doing a lot more on due diligence upfront. So how has the thinking changed on how you perform due diligence on an on-market property as opposed to an off-market property where there's no one else competing with you?
Well, as a matter of fact, in one of them, we didn't have any competition, but we were able to secure owner financing rather than bank financing on
Hmm.
50% of the property. And so we were able to negotiate something that was favorable terms. We didn't have to go to a bank at all. We didn't have to go through underwriting and any of that stuff. That was great. The second property, we did have competition. The Oklahoma property I'm talking about. And leading up to that, I would say you're right. A pitfall someone could fall into is asking lots and lots of questions and never making an offer. And you run out of time because someone else comes in, makes an offer, and the property's gone.
Yeah.
So you have to balance doing enough due diligence to be able to make an offer with not taking too much time, and then doing a whole bunch of due diligence thereafter. So the first thing, of course, is identifying a property, which is takes a lot of time. This is not something you can AI out yet at this particular time. And so we have various scraper things set up, goes to an inbox, and then we have staff that go and review over it and identify out of the 150 that we're looking at on a daily basis, which
Mm.
of those are the best that then might be candidates. So on a daily basis, we're coming up with 10. Of those 10, then it's looking to see, okay, what do they have wetlands on it, flood zone? What's the shape of the property, right? So you get to a large funnel, right, where you get down, 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 down. Okay, here are the best ones. Now let's spend some time on these ones to have it make sense. And so we have staff and automation set up at different levels to help with that. By the time you get to the end, we're down to one or two candidates that maybe one or two a month that we get real serious about. And those ones, like this one, it depends on what's going on the property. So the one that we bought in Door County, Wisconsin, we didn't need to spend a ton of time doing due diligence ahead of it because we've bought and sold in that county several times. We
Mm.
had experience. We had a realtor that we knew and we trusted. And so we could really run that by her to be a member of our team. And we had sold properties near this one, so it was pretty easy. So once we had it under contract, then it was getting a perk test and doing some of that kind of stuff that could kill the deal. But really, it didn't take that much time. About the same as a medium-sized property because of the experience and the trusted team that we had. This
Right.
Oklahoma property, we had a realtor who we've listed a property with, but he hasn't actually gone full cycle to sell it. And
Mm.
so this, we had to really scrutinize a lot. We haven't ever sold in Oklahoma before. And so we bought that one property, but that's it. So we had no experience. So we had to take a lot more time to understand this county, ask lots of questions. In this particular case, it actually had some has oil infrastructure on it. Are these wells
Mm.
capped? Are they not capped? So we had a lot of due diligence questions that we were trying to answer ahead. So that one took a lot more time, but still, we made enough decision to make an offer on the property, and
Right.
we found out that there are other people allegedly putting in offers, and they basically countered us and accepted it because they liked the fact that if we had to, we could close cash with it. So
Mm. So
that's
it's
kind
it
of the gamut.
Yeah. So it seems like, so I'm like, in my head, I'm thinking, all right, so you have this, you could do small, medium flips. There, the challenges that you're facing is, oh, you have a big team. You need to make sure everything is quality controlled. You have to deal with the headaches that come with just the huge amount of volume that you're doing, right? And the other side of the spectrum, you're doing bigger deals, you're doing on market deals, but now you have to be really spend a lot of time on due diligence, make sure that you don't miss anything, right? Because if you do, the losses will, or like the amount of money, you might not make anything on the sell side, right? So it is like it's not easier, it's just you're solving a different kind of problem. Is that how you would categorize it?
Yeah, and I would say it depends on your experience, right? Like the Door County one didn't take much time.
Hmm.
it was it was pretty easy. Whereas where we go into an area where we didn't have experience and we were running into things we hadn't run into before, it took a lot more time. So the
Hmm.
more experience you have, the easier and easier it becomes. And if you're doing medium-sized flips, like in this case in Door County, Wisconsin, we've done several. And so we
Hmm.
knew a good deal about it that, oh, it makes sense. So I think it's a great progression to go towards that. Hey, if you
Yeah.
have experience of doing medium-sized flips and you have a realtor and you've seen that the area sells, right? It's like, oh, doing a subdivide there makes total sense to do. Where on the other
Right.
hand, if you have areas where it sucks, like I know you guys weren't having much fun in North Carolina, right? Like
Yeah.
okay, avoid those counties because they suck. You have the
Yeah.
practical experience telling you not to do it there.
Yeah. I'm guessing realtors are like very important, very critical when you go into like bigger deals, right?
Absolutely critical. And I would say they're critical for medium size too. It's just so much harder to get their attention. Whereas
Yeah.
subdivides, you can get their attention because, like in this case, our realtor in Door County, Wisconsin, she already got paid. She got paid on the buy side as the buy side realtor,
Hmm.
right? For the half a commission or whatever it was that it worked out. And now she's going to get paid on the
Right
other side
again. Yeah.
for selling another 4 properties, right? So
Yeah.
she's going to do well for herself. So it's really a huge win-win situation where you can really get a realtor's attention. And many realtors, if you explain kind of where you're going, right, they'll be like,
Hmm.
"Oh, this is someone that I want to treat well." Versus, "Oh, if you just have one flip there and you never talk to them again, then you're not as likely to get that kind of service and attention."
Yeah. I wanted to switch gears and talk about messy titles because we talked about subdivisions. Tell me what a messy title is and why solving it is valuable.
Yeah, for sure. So again, here the reason why we chose this was because of margins, because of the marketing cost is extremely cheap. It basically takes your time. And the idea of a messy title is that generally, and there's different variations of it, but generally the most common one being someone has died
Hmm.
and they're not paying the property taxes, and you might have 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 heirs, and you might have one person living in it, you might have nobody living in it, even better. And you're helping them solve a problem because they can't sell it without going through probate, and they're likely to lose it as it goes to auction, because they can't just flip it on MLS right now because they have to go through the necessary paperwork to get it done. And our candidate there is someone that they don't have much, if any, in the way of financial resources to be able to get through that process. Whereas most of us, if we have some money, right? Hey, you can pay $5,000 to go through the probate process and then turn around and sell the property. So
Yeah.
it's more an immediate need. Now the thing with messy title is you're essentially cold calling. You could do PPC as well too. You could
Hmm.
mail. We're exploring all of those things, but the primary most people have done is call. And so there's a level of research involved as you figure out who are my list of candidates. You get a list and you got to get that list down. And it's much more of a sniper approach as opposed to mass marketing. So
Hmm.
out of 2,000 or 3,000 or 4,000 delinquent properties, you might get that list down to 100 candidates.
Hmm. How are you filtering it down? Like I know delinquent taxes you can get it from the county, you can get it from data tree. But then you're just looking at probate scenarios, right? How do you do that?
So there's a lot of different ways you can, which I'm still relatively new. So I am not an expert in this area yet, but I'm learning. So we look for things like estate in the name,
Hmm.
EST, multiple owners, et al., which basically means
Hmm.
you have multiple owners or maybe someone who has died. Stuff like that are great initial signals, but where probably the biggest diamonds are is literally going line by line and eliminating people that have paid property taxes in the last 2 years and just focusing on people who haven't paid it in a while and going line by line and researching to see, hey, is this person still alive or not? Because maybe it just hasn't been reported to that county.
Hmm.
Certainly, out of state, out of county owners, right, is another way to identify the list. But a lot of cases, you can research it, but you're not going to know until you actually have a conversation with somebody.
Right.
And so that's the hard part. Research is relatively easy. Getting a list is relatively easy. The hard part is dialing. When
Yeah.
I make phone calls, I'm probably end up doing 75 to 100 in a day after the list has been made ready, and it's a wearing thing to do. But certainly the profit is there. We have one that two that we bought. One, the investment is probably going to end up being $10,000, and we should be able to sell it for $200,000.
Oh, wow.
Another one, our all-in investment is going to be about $25,000, and we should be able to sell it for 120.
Oh, wow.
And because
These
in
are
messy
great
title,
returns.
you're dealing with land and houses. The houses have a much quicker cash conversion cycle. If
Right.
you're priced it right and price it aggressively, those should sell within 2 to 3 months. Whereas we know with land, that can take a lot longer to sell.
Right.
So I like that as an addition to our mix of not just having land, but also adding houses into the mix as well
Right.
too.
When you're on the phone with this lead, what is the value proposition? Like what's in it for them to be able you're solving their problem, and I'm guessing you're just offering a much lower amount, right? Well, how do you come up with that?
How do we come
Like
up
how do you
with
come up with
the
how much to compensate the current owners?
So there's a lot of assumptions built in here, right, in terms of what this looks like. So generally, like with a house, let's say the market value is $150,000 when you look at it on Zillow. You're going to take a 20% haircut from that and assume it sells at 120. So
Right.
you get conservative with your estimates because you don't
Right.
check out these houses. You don't know what you're walking into
Mm,
necessarily. You assume that
yeah.
they're jacked. They're going to need a
Yeah.
little bit of cleanup, but not like renovating it, just cleaning it out, literally.
Yeah.
Um, and once you have that value, then you have to ask yourself, how many heirs are you dealing with,
Mm,
and who really wants to get paid, who just wants to be done with it. And so, depending upon the property, you may partner potentially with some heirs. Some heirs you may be able to buy out for $500 to $1,000. In the case
mm,
that we're doing, we basically said, okay, it's worth 120. We're going to assume that maybe we end up having $25,000 of legal costs. We're going to try and avoid those if we possibly can, but we're going to put that assumption into there. And we're going to buy out the heirs for about 20 to 25% of what we see the market value being.
mm.
So we had about 25 grand to work with in this particular case. And you have to know what were the back taxes. You have to factor that in to the
Yeah.
equation too, because you take on the back taxes from them. So if someone has $35,000 of back taxes and another person has 10,000, well, the 10,000 person's going to get a larger offer on a similar property than the 35,000, right? Because you have that
Right.
much more in costs and stuff you have to cover.
Yeah.
Um,
And
so
and are you paying, I'm guessing if you buy out one heir, like say there are three of them, you buy two of them, and the third one says, "Yeah, I don't want to sell my share, or I don't want to sell." You already paid the first two, right? So how would you handle that situation?
one of the very vital things, again, I'm learning right now still
Yeah.
too, is that you need to have 50% ownership or greater.
Okay.
If you have 50% ownership or greater, you can force the sale,
Oh,
at least
that's
in the
the
state of
key.
Texas, anyhow.
Okay. Also, these laws are also dependent on every state will have their own nuance.
Yep.
Ah, I see. So you have to restrict yourself to the states where you know exactly how the process works.
Or you can lean on people to help teach you, which
Yeah,
is
yeah,
where
yeah.
I'm at. Similar to the
Yeah.
subdivides, I'm JVing with people to help teach me, and I bring them deals, and it's a win-win situation for everybody.
Hmm. So right
And
now
then
you're just
eventually we'll do it on our own.
so right now it's these are just Texas deals?
Hmm.
I see. Hmm. That's an interesting play, because then you have to put in a lot of, like, you're out of capital, you're out of time, you have to hire legal help. It's like so many moving pieces, and then you buy the property, and then you're hoping that it is going to sell at what you originally imagined, right? So it is a lot of risk, a lot of upfront work, but then you reap the hopefully you're going to reap the benefits, right?
And
The
essentially, you have to feel comfortable with doing title company type work.
hmm,
So it's a completely different skill set than what we usually do with land flipping. Some relation, but you have to, like, you're getting, in this case, in this particular case of what we're doing, we're getting affidavits of heirship. We're having to prepare all of that paperwork ourselves, much in the same way for small closes you would do, warranty deeds or limited warranty deeds or whatever, that you would prepare it yourself because you're not going to pay a title company for that.
yeah,
When you're buying something for 2,000 and selling it for 4,000 if you're doing land, and
yeah,
same case here, title companies may or may not insure it, and so you basically
yeah,
have to be prepared to do all the title work yourself.
yeah. It seems like you're doing like so many different things. Do you feel like stretched out, like spread thin with like you have subdivisions going on, you have messy titles going on, you have normal flips going on, you have the financial advisory business. Like when do you sleep?
Well, I have chosen in my businesses to hire more people and get
Mm,
paid less. So if I did this all myself, right? Or I had like my land flipping business, I probably work 20, 25 hours a week in that
mm,
business. Maybe more, depending upon the time and the season. Um, Whereas my financial planning business is pretty similar. I'm probably working 20 to 25 hours a week in that business. And I've hired people. So, like in the case of subdivides, I am only getting brought into the process once it has been identified this is a great property, the basic numbers make sense. Hey, we've done some sort of due diligence to where let's bring it to Dave now to get him involved with it. For the land flipping business, on the buy side, I only get involved with it if it's going to be a purchase greater than 100,000, which is very, very
mm,
few relative in that business. I built up the team to this point to handle all kinds of different things. And when there's a problem, then I'm getting involved with it. And I'm trying to
mm,
train people to handle the problem so I don't have to handle them. Right.
yeah,
So it's about growing as a leader and empowering other people, which means I have higher overhead, but it takes less of my time.
yeah. How big is the team right now?
I think we have about 10 or 11 full-time people on Generation Family Properties, and then we have another 3 or 4 part-time folks. And
Hmm.
then on my financial planning business, it's very small. It's myself, one full-time assistant, and 2 part-time people.
Hmm. If in an alternative universe, if you were to focus all your time and energy on just say the financial planning business, do you think you can replace the revenue what you have right now?
In the land business,
Right.
I think what I've discovered about myself is no, I don't think I could. Not the
Hmm.
revenue. Could I replace maybe the net income? Possibly. In an okay year for the land business. Because my financial planning business, our revenue is about 500K. So it's a fraction of the land business.
Hmm.
So, like, um, our best year, I think the land business netted 700,000 or something like that. Last year, I think we netted 300 grand or 350 grand or something like that was the number there. Which my goal is to net 600, 650, somewhere around there at a $3 million level. At 6 million, I hope to net a mil somewhere around there. So um, the land business has a higher ceiling than um, the financial planning business does, but the financial planning business is very stable relatively. Of
Hmm.
course, it has ups and downs, but it's very sticky, recurring revenue. But it's the cost of per acquisition there is extremely high because of that sticky revenue, and the competition is insane in financial
Hmm.
planning. You're going against banks, insurance companies, people with marketing budgets that are uh, billions of dollars that certainly I can't afford that kind of thing because it's paying my bills, right? But I net, like that business has a much higher margin. I'm probably netting 250 to 300 grand on that business.
Hmm.
So the net income for last year was about the same, but the possibility for land is that it could go so much higher. And what I don't want to do in the financial planning business, which would be the model, would be get a bunch of other financial advisors, train them in, do the marketing, spend a lot of money on marketing, and then feed other people basically, which becomes a
Yeah.
much thinner margin business. Rather than 50% margins, now you're looking at 10. And I felt like I'm already doing that in the land business. I don't need to
Hmm.
do that for another one.
Yeah, yeah, makes sense. I mean, you mentioned there's a ceiling in the land business. I mean, that ceiling though is self-imposed, right? That was my understanding. Is you said, "Oh, I don't want to deal with the big staff and the challenges that come with it." So theoretically, if you were okay with big staff, then there is no ceiling because there's so many parcels.
I know of a good number of land investors who are close to 10 million in revenue. So I
Yeah,
know that is very possible to do following a certain kind of formula today. To get to be a 30 million, 40, 50 million dollar land business is a whole different enchilada.
yeah.
Like that is a different beast. Is it possible? Absolutely. But do I want to run that kind of business? No. That's not the kind of business I want to run.
You don't
So
want
the ceiling,
500 people reporting to you.
yeah, no. That's not what Dave wants. No. I'm good.
But it is possible. So the next, I mean, the follow-up question to that is, like, you're going after these messy title deals, you're going after these on-market subdivisions, but they have a ceiling as well, right? Because there are only so many messy title deals that can be had. And if the
Yeah.
goal is 30 million, you're gonna cap out.
Yeah. No, I think it's fair to say that to there's it's kind of like in the land flipping business, right? Like when you and I and Erica all first started, it was easy to find deals
Hmm.
relatively. You could send out some marketing and could pretty reliably get it back. Messy title is kind of earlier in that cycle right now, but the cost per acquisition will get higher, right? As more people get into the niche, just like with land investing, it'll get harder and harder to find deals. And then people have to start going into other states. The vast
Yeah.
majority of messy title people are in Texas right now. And
Hmm.
so, depending upon so right now, in terms of to answer your earlier question, messy title is something I am personally spending a lot of time on as I'm working on the land business, as well as
Hmm.
just kind of encouraging, motivating, dealing with money is the other major thing I deal with in the land business. Moving money around, making partners, typical CEO and CFO type stuff. Whereas in the messy title, I am the one doing the cold calling,
Hmm.
and so I am finding out what does it take to do that subsidiary, if you will, of our generation family properties
Mm.
business.
That's
So
interesting. You see, this is a deliberate decision that you want to be on the front line, so you can learn the business, so you can eventually train someone, right? That's pretty cool. I like it because then you can see what are the pros and cons firsthand, as opposed to bringing in a new person and then if it didn't work, oh, did it not work because the person I hired sucked, or
yep.
whether it was just the deals were not there. So that's pretty clever. Was that the thought process?
Mhm, mhm, and then the subdivides, I have a gentleman who's my operations manager, who I'm training towards being COO, that I first started him as a pricing analyst, and then he's moved to being operations manager, he's moving to being COO. He's the one who's been overseeing all the subdivide stuff to get to the point of bring a deal to Dave. So,
Hmm.
I've he's here in my office, I've spent hours and hours and hours and hours and hours over the last 2 years training him in to get to
Mhm.
this point that I can trust him to vet
Yeah,
the deals enough that I don't have to spend much time on that part of the
yeah.
process.
I hope all the training was recorded because then you're also have the hiring risk, right?
There's been some things recorded, some things not. So yeah,
Because like people, we lose, like people switch jobs, and we don't want to lose all the right knowledge. Um,
yes.
Final question I had for you was, how are you dealing with the disposition slowdown? Are you even seeing that?
Yeah, no, good question, my friend. Yeah, so the we absolutely have seen a dispo slowdown, but we are still seeing properties move. And
Mm,
so as we've been going through this journey that we've been talking about, we basically stopped marketing not too long around the time that I saw you and Erica in Wyoming. So
yeah.
we were all hanging out in Wyoming doing a mastermind together, and we stopped marketing at that particular time, turned it off entirely.
Mm,
And so that's what's allowing us to then go and just sell what we got, as well as exploring these new methods. Which, if we ended up getting nothing from going through these new ventures, it would be okay. It's not a big deal. So our main goal has been to sell, 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 evaluate properties, figure out what's working and what's not working. We've had some properties that have stuck around with us for 2.5 years, and we've cut price, cut price, cut price, cut price. One of them finally just got under contract. We have another one we bought in 2024, about July, that we still haven't sold yet. That's in an HOA and was a more expensive one, and certainly didn't turn out the way that we wanted it to. In other cases, we have properties that turned real quick. We bought one in August for 60 grand. We sold it in October for $140,000. So,
mm,
it's just very frustrating to figure out what's working and not working, and trying to move on from existing inventory. So we've cut prices, cut owner financing, done all kinds of different things, which maintaining a minimum quality to it in terms of finding the right buyer. Because you could sell something for 100 down and 99 a month, but that buyer is not going to be very sticky. They will
yeah.
likely be a problem trying to collect money from, and then they're probably going to default. 6 months down the road, you're going to have to sell the property again. So yes, you get some cash flow, but you end up inheriting a headache for doing that. So we're trying to avoid that kind of scenario, and do more marketing. We're doing far, far, far more Facebook Marketplace. We've done lands.com forever, realtors, flat fee MLS if we don't have a realtor, um, um, contacting other realtors. So we have some automation that when we want to, we can send out text message blast to other realtors and start interacting with them to see if they have anyone that might be a good fit for the property. Neighbor calls, neighbor letters, our buyers list. So many, many, many different ways that we are trying to move and sell properties. And it's never one thing that works. I wish I could
Yeah.
say this one thing, if I scale this, I'm able to sell everything. That's not the way it's ever worked in our business. We get some sales from here, some sales from here, a little bit here, a little bit here. Some things we cut off because they never produce any sales, or they produce very, very infrequent sales, along with looking at the cost. Like lands.com, we're paying like 4,000 a month
Yeah.
to be on
Land
that
talk.
platform. 4,000 a month. So it's a lot of money to be on that platform, but it produces sales
Yeah.
consistently every
Yeah.
month. So, but it doesn't give us 40 sales a month. It has a cap on what it can currently do in today's environment.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I was having this discussion with Eric, and I was like, the one entity that has consistently, generated more and more revenue is land.com, right? I remember 2018 or whenever we started, it used to be standard listing and a signature listing. So standard was like whatever, $20, signature was like 50 bucks. Then they added platinum for like $400. Now they have diamond for 800 bucks. And I'm sure they're going to come up with ruby, emerald, and all these sorts of things. So they just keep minting money, right? They're like, uh, it's cash cow. It's just generating cash nonstop. Um, have you seen? I'm guessing you have seen the dispo costs go up on your side as well, right?
it's the problem for the last 2 years is there's been a margin squeeze, right?
Yeah,
It's costing us more and more to buy property, and we're not able to get the sales
yeah,
price that we want. Are we
yeah.
still making money? Like I said last year, yes, we're still making money, but it's just literally
Making less.
50%
Yeah,
less margin than we had in a year that had less revenue.
right.
So
Yeah,
not significantly less revenue, but less revenue.
yeah,
So that's just kind of where things are at for us. right this moment. And are you
And
guys experiencing the same thing on your end, or
yeah,
what's it like for
yeah.
y'all?
I mean, we're trying, as I mentioned earlier, we're trying more on the LTV side where we know CAC will keep on going up. How do we increase the LTV? If we can have somehow convince our existing buyers to buy more properties, that just, doubles the LTV. So that's been our focus. We're doing a lot of like building relationships, doing phone calls, doing Zoom calls, going live on YouTube daily. Like we're like putting a ton of effort on the LTV side. I mean, we're seeing signs of it paying off, but it's slow, right? It takes time. You can't just building a relationship is a slow game, right? But it is also a long game, and we're setting ourselves up to have a moat, right? Because if someone is starting in 2026 as a land investor, right, it's much harder than when we started, right, in
Yeah.
2018. So
But
any sorry,
it's
go
not
ahead.
impossible though either.
Yeah,
I feel
yeah,
like the moat is bigger than it was, but it's not an impossible moat to cross. So,
yeah,
let's say before someone could start with $2,000, $3,000. I would say today someone probably needs 20 to 30,000 to
yeah,
give themselves plenty of wiggle room just in case some things go wrong. So
yeah,
it absolutely can be done, and people are doing it. I get shocked at who is this person? I've never heard of them in my life, you know and they crush it. Reality is majority of people don't make it, but plenty of people still do. But that's true of any
right,
business.
right,
Like when I started with Edward Jones in financial planning, only probably 10% of the people that went through the program made it. That's just the 80-20 rule at work.
mm,
That doesn't matter the business, but some people will succeed and continue to succeed, whether you do cheaper properties, more expensive properties. So anyone out there can do it. You just have to have
yeah,
the dedication and skill set, and you have to have some finances behind you.
yeah. It's become a normal business, right? It's used to be this like blue ocean, right? And now it's more like a reddish ocean, just like every other business. Um, Dave, thank you so much, for sharing your wisdom, coming on the show. I really appreciate it. If anyone's watching this, they think Dave is a cool guy, I want to partner with him or I want to hang out with him, what's the best place for them to reach out?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a school community that's called Leadership in Land, where we put a lot of land type stuff out there. Certainly, you can check out my financial planning website, daviddenniston.com. You can check out the Generation Family Properties website, genfamproperties.com. And we're on YouTube. We're on all over the place, but probably one of those places would be the best place to find me, depending upon how you're trying to reach me and what the context is. Go visit one of those and you can look up my information and reach out.
Yeah, Dave, thank you so much.
Thank you. Appreciate you guys.